Democrats and Republicans agree on one thing. James Comey is guilty of politicizing the FBI and meddling in the 2016 election. In your eyes, he may be guilty too of self-righteousness, self-regard, and the inappropriate production of a petty, cash-for-gossip revenge attack on President Trump. But no one is above the law, even James Comey. So tonight we ask, is he guilty of federal crimes? In a moment, top lawyers for the prosecution and defense go head-to-head in this Next Revolution special as we put James Comey on trial. Evening, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of the Next Revolution. I'm Steve Hilton, and I'm joined live in New York by the best legal team on television, standing by to cut through the spin and politics and focus on the three areas where there are grounds to believe that James Comey may have broken the law: his handling of the Clinton email investigation, his role in leaks of confidential government information, and the actions he took in connection with that infamous Russia dossier. As we investigate the charges, let us know what you think at NextRevFNC and at Steve Hilton X. You might see your comments on the bottom of the screen, and we'll read your verdicts later in the show. Now, let's meet the legal teams. Here for the prosecution, co-host of The Five, former prosecutor Kimberly Guilfoyle, and Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. For the defense, former U.S. attorney who worked at the Department of Justice with James Comey, Guy Lewis, and former United States Department of Justice Assistant Chief Deputy Ron Bamier. And over here at the other table are our legal analysts who I'll be going to for details on all of the charges: former U.S. Attorney Kendall Coffy and trial attorney Harmeet Dillon. Okay, let's get right to the first set of possible charges against James Comey involving his handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation. The charges we're talking about are obstruction of justice and perjury. So let's get some insight now from Kendall Coffy about those charges, and then we'll debate them. Kendall.
Well, Steve, perjury is pretty well known. The traditional elements are a knowingly false statement under oath in a proceeding, whether it be before Congress, a grand jury. Obstruction is more open-ended, and it's one of the prosecutor's best friends. Traditionally, the elements include falsification of documents, concealing evidence, or making a false statement. But it also has a broader category of interfering with the proper administration of law. The key to obstruction is showing a corrupt intent. What would have been an improper purpose of James Comey? Well, consider that he's recently said that in October 2016, he was considering the political presidential inevitability of Hillary Clinton as a factor in a decision he made.
About that investigation?
About that. Was he, in fact, influenced or as a factor considering Clinton's inevitability in July 2016 when he, in a highly irregular fashion, shut down the Clinton email investigation?
Well, you've set it out for us. Those are the potential charges there: perjury, obstruction of justice. Now, let's remember that we're not interested in anyone's opinion about James Comey. What we're interested in is whether or not he broke the law. Kimberly, those charges relating to the Clinton investigation.
It's very interesting because we're beginning to see a lot of the facts come out. We have his statements in front of Congress. We have now, of course, statements in the book that is about to be released. But we also have the IG's investigation. We won't really know for sure, and I want to point this out to the viewers, whether or not he committed these crimes until that report is completed and released. So based on what we know now, we know that this was an individual that specifically seemed to have an intended purpose in an outcome. He said that he made the decision after speaking to Hillary Clinton, but there's investigation reports saying that, in fact, he had already predetermined the outcome as to whether or not she had broken the law. To me, I think that's very interesting because there's a tremendous inconsistency there. Did he make knowingly a false statement when he made that assertion and said that he waited? And why, in fact, were her aides given immunity? It was almost to help push the intended outcome along to get to a certain determination.
So, Greg, before the defense get a chance to challenge the arguments, what would you add to the case against James Comey in relation to the Clinton email investigation on the specific charges there of perjury and obstruction?
The evidence against Hillary Clinton was powerful, overwhelming evidence under a variety of statutes that she broke the law. And if James Comey cleared her for political reasons, that's obstruction of justice. That's a corrupt intent. And I find it very curious in his book that on the reopening of the Hillary Clinton case, he admits that politics was influencing him. That leads me to believe that it influenced his original decision to exonerate her. I don't know how in the world you write an exoneration statement 2 months before you even interview her.
That's the perjury point, isn't it? That he said that it wasn't written until the interview, but actually it turns out that it was...
It was his testimony for the House Judiciary.
On the obstruction, a lot of people have pointed to the lack of a grand jury being impaneled. Subpoenas and so on. Could you talk to those points a little?
Yeah, I think it's very telling because, again, it really goes towards almost like a goal, an ideological goal and a predetermination that Hillary Clinton was going to become president of the United States. And why would you not talk to the people, the aides, the people that were involved with her right away from the beginning? Why wasn't an impartial grand jury and panel to get to the actual truth of the matter? Why ahead of time were her aides, people who would have been directly involved and acting in concert with her, given immunity?
So those two things, let's just be very... I want to be really forensic and precise tonight on this question of breaking the law. Those two actions, not impaneling the jury and immunity for the aides, how is that a crime?
Comey said in his very public statement that there was evidence of potential violation of the criminal statutes. That should have been enough to refer it to DOJ and impanel a grand jury to decide. But then he leaps to the conclusion, but no reasonable prosecutor would ever bring such a case, which is rank speculation. I interviewed 5 former FBI top officials. They all said that what Comey did was wrong, and it's not up to him to be a prosecutor. The FBI does investigation.
So it may have been wrong. What we're trying to establish is whether it was illegal. What's your response to the charges there that what he did in relation to the Clinton investigation could have broken the law in relation to perjury and obstruction?
Kimberly, I think, makes a terrific point. Her first point is we need to know the facts. We need more facts. We need more information. And that's where really I come down because, look, I'll be the first one to tell you, Steve, there are some procedures here, having been at the Department of Justice for a long, long time, having tried a number of big cases, national cases and investigations. I saw some things here that I didn't quite understand, and I still don't understand. For example, why is the FBI director himself taking over the case, announcing a declination, and not interacting with the DOJ? In my experience, I've never seen that. But Kimberly's point is well taken. I would like to know why, who else was involved in those decisions. What's the paper trail that would lead...
But can I just focus you on this question of obstruction? Do you think, well, the two questions, obstruction and perjury. Let's take perjury first, actually. A lot of people have been very focused on that. He said that he only made the decision to exonerate her after the interview, but there are documents that show that the exoneration decision was being prepared before that. Is that perjury, the statement there?
Well, first of all, now it's 3-on-1. Thank you, Guy. I really appreciate that. I'll tell you why all 3 of you guys are wrong here in a second. It's not perjury, number one, because everybody talks about perjury and we all think, oh, God, look, this guy said something, seems false, that's perjury. Perjury is a really tough crime to prosecute. As somebody who's done it and defended it, it's really hard to prove. First of all, drafting an opinion is a lot different than making a decision.
Sorry to cut you off, but like, people can't understand if they really were interested in learning from the interview why the exoneration was prepared beforehand.
Well, regardless of why it was prepared beforehand, and people don't understand, you're asking whether you can prosecute them for something. So whether they understand or don't understand doesn't really matter. Whether the question is, could they prove it? And the answer would be no. Because anytime you're drafting a memo, and I could say to anybody, look, I think X, and this is what my opinion is going to be, but I'm going to wait to find out until we have the interview with Hillary done before I issue my decision.
But the perjury charge is about what he said to Congress.
Right, and he said to Congress he hadn't decided. He didn't say he hadn't drafted an opinion.
And you're saying that proving that he was lying then is going to be
Proving that he's lying is almost impossible.
Okay.
And then
That's
also,
a tough charge.
Okay, you all agree.
Perjury is a tough charge.
one for the good guys. Let's just keep
there you go.
the scoreboard here, Steve,
Exactly.
that we can put that up.
Let's go to the obstruction point, because all the way in which the investigation was carried out, not impaneling all the points Kimberly and Greg made, not impaneling the grand jury, the failure to get warrants to search. There's a whole set of things that would normally have been expected to happen that didn't happen. Does that add up to obstruction?
Right, and so the basic argument I would make on something like this would be this. I'd break it down even simpler, like cops and crooks, right? Cops all the time do investigations and make thousands of mistakes. Not that they're not trying their hardest, not that they're not trying to get to the truth, not that they're incompetent, but they're people. They make mistakes. So any investigation is ripe full of lots of mistakes all the time. And in this case, when we look at Comey and his position, he's on the cop side. He's not on the prosecution side. Okay, he's not the prosecutor. He's not the one who's going to file charges. He can't. The U.S. Attorney's Office has to do it. So if I was defending this, we would do the some other dude did it defense. And the other dude being the Attorney General's office and the President Obama. They ran the show. They could have prosecuted him if they could have prosecuted Hillary if they wanted to. Matter of fact,
it's not the prosecution; it's the way it was conducted.
It doesn't matter how the investigation is conducted. For
That's what you're not claiming that President Obama directed the way that the FBI.
I'm not claiming anything. I'm saying I have a credible argument to believe that since to give immunity to any witness, that has to come from DOJ. That can't come from the FBI directly. DOJ has to approve that. So it's not like he's by himself saying, hey, here's an immunity agreement. No, that's not the way it works. So
you can be the head of an investigation and obstruct it yourself.
Right.
If you are making decisions for a corrupt purpose. That's the language of the obstruction statute.
And that, just so that everyone understands that, because when, to a layperson, that word corrupt means, money changing hands. That's not the legal definition of corrupt, is it?
Corrupt is actually defined in 5 different ways under the statute. Lie, threat, bribe.
Let's hear what they are. Go on.
Lie, threat, bribe, concealing evidence, destroying documents. Those are the examples in the statute, but there are others. Clearing somebody for a political reason and ignoring the law would also qualify as a corrupt purpose.
Yes.
It's the equivalent of
But nobody was cleared. The statute of limitations didn't even run until after Trump was in office. So nobody has been cleared of anything. Anybody could have picked up that investigation at DOJ. Anybody could have followed through with the prosecution. I think on some charges the statute of limitations still exists. So when you say that he ended the investigation or that he stalled it, well, maybe. And if that was the case, then why didn't somebody else pick it up?
I don't think
yeah, but I think this is very telling. I mean, let's be honest. This was James Comey's show, okay? He was the one running the investigation. He was the one deciding when he shouldn't have improperly whether or not their charges should be brought, that no reasonable prosecutor. So what I'm saying is there is a trail of corrupt intent from beginning to end that you can run the thread.
He doesn't have the authority to decide.
Why did he not, why he issued they weren't able to issue subpoenas to be able to gather evidence for Congress to be able to get it? Why such a delay in being able to obtain necessary items to show before items were destroyed with bleach bit and a hammer, destruction of evidence in a case? He should have right away gone in and made sure that they had those items, the ability to get them before there was enough time to destroy them. That stripped the American people of justice in this case, and he was calling the shots, and that's how I believe he showed corrupt intent and obstructed justice.
All right, well, we'll have to leave it there. The audience will be able to make up their minds.